Continuing on with the TMCC Library Open Genealogy Lab Outstanding Guest Speaker Series, today we are pleased to present Amy L. Waters. Amy is currently a senior librarian at the State Historical Society of Missouri-Columbia. She received her bachelor's and master's degree from Emporia State University in her native Kansas. An avid genealogist, she enjoys traveling, having visited all 50 states and every U.S. president's grave. In today's presentation, Amy will cover genealogy resources at the State Historical Society of Missouri. The State Historical Society of Missouri has a number of genealogical resources that can be used to find information on your Missouri ancestors. Resources include the largest Missouri newspaper collection in the world, along with reference and manuscript collections focused on the people and places of Missouri. Almost all of the State Historical Society collections can be transferred between its 6 research centers, and the Society's digital collections can be accessed for free at shsmo.org. In addition to a large collection of digitized newspapers, online resources include maps, manuscripts, editorial cartoons, photographs, and other Missouri-related items that can be helpful in your Missouri-related research. So I would like to offer a warm virtual welcome to Amy.
Thank you. Okay, so let me first get started by explaining. It can be a little difficult when it comes to Missouri genealogical resources because there are really 3 institutions that cover the state of Missouri. 2 of them are state agencies and 1 of them is not. So I work at the State Historical Society of Missouri, and we are the state agency, the State Historical Society. There is a historical society that has similar name, the Missouri Historical Society in St. Louis, which is focused on really the St. Louis area doing research, but they are actually older than the State Historical Society, and they have much better funding because they have a tax based in St. Louis. We are supported by the state and by membership. And then the third institution is the Missouri State Archives in Jefferson City. Jefferson City is the state capital of Missouri, and the Missouri State Archives has the local records program, and they are also the holder of materials for the state government. So just want to kind of make that clear that, so local records, they have the county records that are on microfilm in Jefferson City. We do not have them here. But I'm going to share with you information about where I work, the State Historical Society of Missouri. So let me get started with that. So we were founded in 1898 by the Missouri Press Association and established as a trustee of the state. We were established by Missouri Press specifically to collect Missouri newspapers. That group got together, and they wanted someplace that all of their papers could be preserved, and that's how we came to exist. And they located the society not in Jefferson City, the state capital, but instead at the University of Missouri campus here in Columbia, which is the largest university in the state of Missouri. And then in 1943, the university established 4 different Western historical manuscript collections. The goal there was to collect all sorts of material from all around the state, and they did them on the campuses because the University of Missouri has a campus here in Columbia, but they also have campuses in St. Louis, Rolla, and Kansas City as well. However, in 2010, the SHS assumed control of the Western historical manuscript collections, and at the same time expanded into Cape Girardeau and Springfield at universities in those 2 cities. And then the building I'm sitting in, which is the Center for Missouri Studies, was opened in August of 2019. We moved in the summer of 2019, opened in August, and closed in March for the pandemic, and then reopened again in August of 2020. So that was quite a little adventure to move from what was the University of Missouri's main academic library into our own building. And on the screen, you'll see the 6 different research centers for the State Historical Society of Missouri. That the middle top, that's the Columbia building. That's, like I said, that's the building I'm sitting in. It was built in 2019. All the other 5 research centers are within university academic libraries. So you've got Kansas City at UMKC, St. Louis at UMSL, and then Springfield's Research Center is in the big academic library at Missouri State University. Cape Girardeau's Research Center is at Southeast Missouri State, And then what used to be the University of Missouri-Rolla is now Missouri Science and Technology. So, okay, so probably the most important thing to get out of this program is the website. We're going to spend a lot of time looking at different parts of the website, and it's really just a simple address of shsmo.org. Okay, so let me run through real quickly. On our website, we have a number of genealogy research guides, including, you can see, adoptions. And as I do this, I want to give you a little information also about different topics of our research guides. So Missouri is a closed adoption state, and it can make it really difficult to search for adoptions. We actually at the SHS have very little information when it comes to adoptions. And in general, adoptions in the state really became much more difficult after 1917. After 1917, they became much more focused. The state really took over. Before then, you might be able to find an adoption record in county deed records. Not a lot of times, but sometimes. But anything after that is really difficult. And just recently, the state made some changes, but it still required, you had to know the parents' names. You had to get permission for these adoption records to be opened. So unfortunately, it can be really difficult to do adoption research in the state of Missouri. And then, but these research guides also include African American and both Native American, both can be really difficult also to do. And then let me just quickly say, when it comes to birth and death in the state of Missouri, so birth and death certificates start in 1910 for the state. The Missouri State Archives in Jefferson City, some of you may be familiar with this, have put online death certificates older than 50 years. It's absolutely wonderful. They've scanned them, they put them online, they're searchable. They're great. Birth certificates are closed and probably will remain closed, but both of those are held by the Bureau of Vital Stats, except the death certificates when they're released to the Missouri State Archives. Census records, Missouri became a state in 1821, and we have federal census records starting in 1830. Then there are some state census records that survived, not a whole lot. Those are either held by us or again at the state archives in Jeff City. Land records are held by the counties here in the state of Missouri. So local records program have them on microfilm in Jeff City, or a lot of them can be found at Family Search. Marriages also done at a county level here in the state. And again, Family Search or the Missouri State Archives. And then military records are a lot of those, any records that have to do with actual Missouri regiments. A lot of those are also, we have indexes and stuff like that, but a lot of them are also held by the Missouri State Archives. And the Missouri State Archives has a really wonderful online index for soldiers from the War of 1812 through World War I. So, but a lot of that information can also be found on all of our genealogy guides. So what do we have? So our collections here at the SHS include, I'm not going to focus on the art collection or anything, but I just want you to be aware of it. We have large collections of Thomas Hart Benton and George Caleb Bingham. And then the collections I am going to focus on are our manuscript collections, our maps, our newspapers, oral histories, photographs, and reference. So our reference collection has a number of books in it, and this includes, periodicals. We collect the local genealogical society periodicals. We also are a government repository for the state. So we collect government documents, although that's been interesting in the last few years because so many of Missouri's government documents are now being put online. And so collecting them is kind of a strange area where it's like, do we really want to keep the paper documents, or do we all switch to digital as well? And then city directories and plat maps, which I'm also going to show you a little bit later. When we made the move from Ellis Library over to our new building, the Center for Missouri Studies, we established our Missouri collection, which essentially is all the books that are in the open stacks in our research center. And those books, we call it our Missouri collection because it's all of the Missouri biographies. And the librarians here at the SHS have a tendency to claim anybody who stepped foot in the state. So, you know, I mean, we have big sets of Mark Twain, my favorite Missourian, which would have to be Jesse James. That's sarcasm, just so. And, you know, younger brothers, all of those big names that you kind of, when you think of Missouri, you think of these biographies. And then we also have a large collection of family surname histories that have a focus with Missouri, county histories, and along with that are indexes. All the county stuff is shelved together. We also have a lot of city and town histories. That includes also city directories, you know, big sections of city directories for St. Louis and Kansas City. And then we also have the largest collection of Missouri plat maps and atlases. So to find our books, we recently, when the University of Missouri switched to Discovery and Folio by EBSCO, so did we. So this is just in the past year, we've switched to this new Discovery system. But this is, and these links, everything is linked from our website. You just go to our website and you'll be able to find this. But this is our catalog, our online card catalog for all of our materials. And you can see there, you know, you can search by keyword, and then we're working towards where you can also have a limiter of just the SHS, because we are connected to the other University of Missouri campuses. So, and they have over 5 million items. We do not have nearly that. So this is how you find the books in our collection. So newspaper collection, which, like I said, is why we were originally established. At this point, we have more than 65,000 reels of microfilm, and we currently collect over 200 newspapers from every Missouri county. Newspapers have become really, you know, I know everybody says they're a dying breed, and they are, but we are still collecting what we can. We're collecting both in print and in digital. So we really, at this point, have two different newspaper formats, right? We have our newspapers on microfilm, and then we have the Missouri Digital Newspaper Project. Like I said, we in-house microfilm, still are creating microfilm reels every day. And a lot of it's going to take a long time for all of our newspapers to ever become digitized. But so there are two different methods here when you're looking at our newspapers on microfilm. So you can find them two different ways. We have on our website, we have county PDFs, and that's what you can see on your screen for like Cedar County newspaper directory right here. Those PDFs are no longer being updated, and that's because you can also search for our records in our catalog. But most of the older stuff obviously is going to be already in the newspaper directories. And what I've highlighted and circled there is in the directories, they're in county, and then in alphabetical order by the name of the town where the newspaper was published, and then the name of the newspaper. And our newspapers are done on a reel number system. So you go and find the newspaper that you're looking for, and what you need to know is that number in blue, which is the reel number to retrieve the microfilm or to ask to have the microfilm interlibrary loaned. Yeah, and so that is the PDFs. You can also, in our catalog, very specifically search, as you can see there, you know, you can search for Boone County newspapers 1895. We've made a concerted effort to make it so that you can search by the county and put in the specific year you're looking for and find out what we have. For instance, I did a search for the Boone County newspapers in 1895, and 7 different results for Boone County appeared. Now that top one only has a single issue for 1895, but that's a way to quickly bring up what we have for a specific year in a specific county. And all of our film can be interlibrary loaned to a local public or academic library. Now, our Missouri Digital Newspaper Project. So we have 3 platforms that it's on: newspapers.com, Chronicling America, and some of it is still on our Content DM site, but most of it has been moved to newspapers.com, except, and this is important to note, the only way to get to our papers for free is to go through our website. You cannot go to newspapers.com and find all the papers that the SHS of Missouri has contributed. It has to be a jump from our website to the specific newspaper. I want to make sure that that's understood. It has to be from our website. And then we do have some stuff. Originally, a lot of our newspapers were put on Chronicling America. But a lot of it, like I said, is actually being moved to newspapers.com. So I just wanted to real quickly give you some tips. One of the things that I've discovered is these two newspaper clippings right here are from a Wichita, Kansas newspaper. I had a set of relatives that I knew they had owned the home at 912 South Lawrence Avenue in Wichita from the early 1900s to the 1930s. But for a short time period, based on city directories, they were not living in the house between 1916 and 1919. And I couldn't understand why that was until I did a search by the address in the Wichita newspaper and discovered that they had a sale when they were leaving the city in 1915. And then in 1916, they had put that house up for rent. So between those two newspaper articles and a Phoenix, Arizona city directory, I was able to figure out that my ancestors had left Wichita for a 3-year time period to move to Phoenix and then come back, but never gave up ownership of their home. So I just wanted to kind of mention that maybe try searching by some things that you wouldn't normally search for, including an address, especially in big city papers. And then I recently helped my mom annotate a great aunt's diary and was able to get, by searching by businesses and schools and churches, was able to find some really interesting newspaper articles and newspaper advertisements to include in this diary, just to add some images to make it more interesting, And then the other thing is that you should always remember to search by Mr. or Mrs. Sometimes publishers didn't include first names. And then my family has a tendency to use initials a lot. And so I always want to search by the initials too. And then if it's possible, you can search by last name. That's not really possible for me with my last name being Waters. If you've ever done a search for water in a digital newspaper, you know that you're going to get a lot of results and it has nothing to do with a last name. But I do find it fun to, when I have my unique last names, I have a Steenrod and an Axtell and some of those, to just search and find everything I possibly can on that name. We also have an index to select Missouri newspapers. This was done as a project by librarians many years ago. They indexed a number of the papers. The papers are not digitized, but the index is. And so you can search our index, and if you come up with something of interest, they indexed both subjects, but they also indexed marriages, deaths, all kinds of stuff. You can make a request to have us scan the article and send it to you. And then we do have a large map collection, including historical maps, obviously, of the state of Missouri. Those include Railroad Commission maps and mining maps. We have a set of really early state highway maps from 1919 that actually have original drawings on them and original handwriting on them. And then we also have some plat maps that I want to show you. And then you can see there, city maps, topos, our aerial photographs, and also Sanborn fire maps. The University of Missouri has put their Sanborn fire maps online in color. And so I recommend, if you're looking for Sanborn fire maps for the state of Missouri, to try the University of Missouri. Okay, so as I mentioned, plat maps, we, along with a project with the state library, they started the project, and then as a condition for us letting them scan our out of copyright plat maps, they gave us the images, and we took those plus any additional maps that we had here and have put as many of our plat maps online. Like I said, they have to be out of copyright. A lot of them were done in color. And if you've used plat maps, you know how wonderful they can be when you find your ancestor's name on them. But they also include the older ones. We tend to have 3 sets for the state of Missouri, which is the early ones that are from around 1876 and the early 1880s, and then another set that was done around the turn of the century, and then another set that was done in the teen years. And that's so a number of our counties have at least 3 different plat maps. Some of them do not. The Boot Heel in Missouri is really bad. New Madrid County, Dumpling County, they do not have a lot of early plat maps. And then our manuscript collection. I tend to think of manuscript collections as being the primary materials that make all the secondary collections, or the secondary materials in our reference collection. Some of the really cool ones that we have include funeral home records. We also have, because Missouri was both a Union and a Confederate state, we have Confederate home cards that have been scanned and put online. And these are really great if you're looking for information on regiments that Confederate soldiers served in. A lot of Confederate documents didn't make it through the war. And so these sometimes can provide information that can't be found anywhere else. And then we also have a lot of Missouri-related diaries, especially when it comes to Civil War diaries in our manuscript collection. So our manuscript collections, right, includes photographs, oral histories, all kinds of different correspondence. They include our family, personal, and professional papers. We collected, and the university collected, a lot of Missouri politicians' papers. So we have really large collections of those. In the last few years, we've taken Claire McCaskill's, former senator from the state of Missouri. We have her papers, although most of hers are all digital. And then we are also taking the papers of Roy Blunt, the senator from Missouri, who is retiring at the end of this Congress. But we also have large family groups of papers, which includes, we have a big collection from Central Missouri of a woman who collected everything she could get her hands on for all kinds of families in like I said, in the mid-Missouri area. And then of course we collect organizational records. So both organizational and government agencies, businesses, churches, just a lot of what, if people are willing to donate and give us their stuff, we generally are willing to take it on and store it here, or at the other. We try to do it based on region now, where if it's a Kansas City related material in that area, it'll go to the Kansas City Research Center. So when it comes to our manuscripts, the best way to search is at the website. And you can see that little box up there. That is in the right-hand corner of our website. You put in your search term and you can get all kinds of results for both the manuscript collections, digital images, all of that type of stuff. The only thing that box won't search is our catalog, our online card catalog. It will not search that. They are not connected. But you can also, if you'd like to, you can browse by the research center. You can also browse by many different subjects, and also the county within the state. You can also browse through theirs as well. So what are you going to find when you browse or search for something? So when it comes to our manuscript collections, you're going to get to a finding aid. And that finding aid is exactly what it sounds like. It helps you understand the collection. It includes information on when we acquired it, who we acquired it from, and then when it was processed and how large that collection is. It also includes index terms, and if there are any media, which includes photographs, audio cassettes, video cassettes, anything like that. On the screen are 2 different types of finding aids. The first one for the John J. Watts papers, that's actually a processed collection. The one behind it is an unprocessed collection. When a collection comes in, our archivists do an initial kind of, okay, what came in, what's in each box. And then later on, when the time comes, they actually do a full process of the collection, and they move it from cubic boxes into gray boxes or Hollingers and into folders to make it much easier for its use. But unprocessed collections can sometimes sit for a while, and that especially when it comes to large political collections, you know, sometimes they can be massive in size. We just recently had a researcher in working on the Danforth collection, and the Danforth collection is something like 300 cubic feet or something. They can be massive in size. And so it takes a long time to process those collections. Okay, so we have photographs within the manuscript collection, but then we also have a separate photograph collection as well. And it's, you know, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's just a collection of all different sorts of photographs from all around the state. It also includes postcards. A lot of those images have been digitized and put in our digital collections. So if you are working on, you know, a family history and you want to add interesting photographs and information like that, you can normally grab them from our website. We don't charge if you just download it from our website. A lot of them were put in at pretty high resolution, so you know you can download them and are able to use them, and they're in pretty good image quality wise. The only time, generally, what happens if you need a really high res, that tends to be people who are publishing books, and we do have a $20 fee for that. But if you can take it off the website and use it, we are happy for you to do so. Also have an oral history collection, you know, a lot of politicians, and then a former co-worker of mine was focused really on getting ex-POWs. He worked with the Library of Congress to do a lot of those individuals, especially individuals from the World War II era that are really dying off, and wanted to make sure that we captured those stories. And so thankfully, a lot of those have transcriptions as well, which is, you know, especially for anybody who's doing research not here in our building, you know, the transcripts are wonderful because we can send those out very easily, as opposed to trying to make digital files and somebody having to sit through the entire interview. So they also have focused on one-room schoolhouses, again, because of a generation that most of us, most young people, and I'm not calling myself young, but I certainly didn't attend a one-room schoolhouse, but there certainly are a generation that we're losing that did attend one-room schoolhouses, and it's important to capture their stories. Okay, so digital collections. As I've mentioned, I've talked about the Missouri digital newspapers, that a lot of our photographs are online. We do also have an art collection portion of our digital website, and then editorial cartoons. And sometimes those are just fun and interesting, like I said, especially to add to a family history. Map collections, including our plat maps there, and also aerial photographs. And then also some of our oral histories are online, as well as a lot of digitized material from our manuscript collection. Yet we focused on a lot of times that what goes online is comes from the anniversaries, right? And so we just had the anniversary of the sesquiquincentennial of the Civil War. So a lot of Civil War material went online. We have a large collection of World War I and World War II letters. Those have also gone online. And so there's a lot of, not just wars, we have all kinds of other categories as well: sports, travel, various different interests that we've set up as their own collections on the digital portion of our website. So this is what our digital website looks like. You can search in that box. You can search for everything in our digital collection. You know, you can put in subjects, you can put in names, or you can go down specifically and click on a specific collection if you'd like to search just within that collection. If you do happen to stop in and see us on our on-site here at all of our facilities, we have access to Ancestry Library, newspapers.com, fold3.com, and we also are one of the affiliate libraries of Family Search. We discovered a need, especially here in Columbia, when the Family Search library here in Columbia had very limited hours. And so we wanted to make an effort to try to expand that, and we did. And so each one of our research centers is a Family Search affiliate library. And if you're not familiar with that, it just simply means some of the items that you might find with the little key, they're locked on Family Search if you're using it at home, are oftentimes unlocked if you're here on site in our building. So when it comes to making research requests, especially if you're offsite and live in a different state, aren't going to be able to travel to Missouri, any of the materials at our research centers can be viewed at the other research centers. And again, those are the research centers are all here within the state. But you search for your resources, you can place a request. It's going to ask you your information and all of that. And I'm going to go through that here in just a minute. And then if you're actually visiting us, we need you to make appointments, especially when it comes to manuscripts, and we got to have some advance time to move them between all of our facilities. So remote research assistance. Again, on our website, underneath the research tab, you can go to research requests and appointments. And from that page, it explains how we do remote research and if you're going to visit one of our centers. And then when you actually are on that page, you'll fill it out and you make the important distinction. Are you making an appointment at a research center or not? If the answer is no, then what you do is you put in all your information and then you give us information about what it is you're looking for. For instance, what we do is all of the archivists and the librarians take turns answering the emails, and we look at the emails, we determine, we search our indexes. Do we find anything? Do we think we can help you? And if we can, we respond telling you we do have a fee-based research service. And so, we tell you what it is that this will cost. But at the same time, we also do research can also be something as simple as you're looking for an obituary or something like that. You send us the emails and then we respond back to you with what going forward it would cost for us to do this and what we found that may be of interest to you. But that's how you do remote research. You do the first step of letting us know what it is you're looking for, and then we let you know what we have available. If you were to visit us, we're open Tuesday through Friday, and in Columbia, we're open on Saturday. And as I mentioned before, we have to verify that the manuscripts are here on site or if they have to be moved. Most important thing is that you take a look at our website. All the information is on there. All the searching that you need to do to figure out what we have is on there. And then our staff will be in contact with you. So those are some of the resources here at the State Historical Society of Missouri. I hope, like I said, the most important part is the website and that you take a look at it and figure out if there is anything we can help you with, and send us an email and we'll be happy to get back with you to figure out how we can move forward and help you. So, and if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, class, go ahead and unmute your microphone and ask the question to Amy. And Amy, while I'm waiting for them to ask some questions, you mentioned that you will do interlibrary loan for the microfilm.
Yes.
What about books? Do you do interlibrary loan for books as well?
No, I'm sorry. I should have mentioned that. So our books will move between the research centers, but they do not move. They do not go outside the state. And part of that is because we are a preservation library. And what that means is that, right, we're here to preserve these books forever, and sometimes we even collect more than one book just to make sure that we have backup copies of our books. But no, our only microfilm interlibrary loans.
Okay, that's understandable.
Sure.
Now, we do have some people today for the first time who are beginning genealogists. You mentioned a couple terms that they may not be familiar with. So could you go ahead and kind of define topo, Sanborn, and plat maps and how they are important to genealogy? Okay.
All right. So in our case, our topographical maps, they are very detailed maps. They're done they can be done in various different degrees, but we have 15-minute and 7.5 minute. And that just has to do with how big the maps are. But topo maps are fantastic, that they can get down sometimes into cemeteries that no longer exist, places that no longer exist. We have, for instance, Pinhook, Missouri was destroyed when the Corps of Engineers, and Pinhook is important to us because it was one of the only African-American communities in the state. And when the Corps of Engineers breached the levee, when the Mississippi River was flooding, it destroyed that town. And so one of the few maps that actually shows the location of Pinhook is a topo map. And so those are really great for really details when it comes to formations on maps. And then plat maps. If you're not familiar with plat maps, as a genealogist, you're going to have to. If your ancestors own any land, plat maps, plat atlases show you who owned land and gives you the legal land description, section, township, range, right? Missouri's land was done in a grid, and so it has named townships and then the actual legal townships, which are different things. But plat maps are wonderful if you can find your ancestors on there, and it shows you how much land they owned and all of that. And then I think you had a third one. I can't remember what it is. I'm sorry.
Sanborn.
Oh, Sanborn. Okay. So I love Sanborn maps. They're fantastic, especially what they do is Sanborn maps, they're Sanborn insurance maps. And so they're very detailed maps, especially in downtown cities that were done at different points to help with what type of structure stood at a certain location. And I, for instance, have used them a lot when it comes to when I've done my research in Wichita, Kansas, or Leavenworth, Kansas, St. Louis, Kansas City will all have them. And they're very detailed. And the reason I think I pointed this out is that the Sanborn maps that the University of Missouri has put online are in color, is because the color is what helps you determine what type of structure was standing there. And so the colors mean something. So when you see them in black and white, it's not as good. You really want to see them in color. And so Sanborn maps, I've also used them for trying to get at old addresses. Leavenworth, Kansas, for instance, changed how their addresses. And so the house that my great-grandparents lived at is not the same address. There are different addresses. And so I use them a lot of times because the addresses have been put on them. And it really does show you the different plots of land and how the city laid out the land. So yeah, Sanborn, it's one of those interesting things that it was done not for genealogists, but it's become a really cool thing for a genealogist to get to use.
Amy,
okay, great.
Question.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Is there any effort in Missouri to digitize the records in the courthouses?
Okay, so like I said, that's local records program done by the state archives. And I mean, I've certainly found that a lot of those records that were microfilmed for the state archives are what are on Family Search now. Now, whether there's an effort to go back and do new stuff, that I can't speak to. I'm not involved with that program, but yeah, a lot of those records are either going to be at the state archives, or we've certainly find here when we do research that land records, court records, the marriage records are all online at Family Search.
Okay, that kind of brings me to something else. We do have some new people here today for the first time. Can you briefly tell them what Family Search is in case they're not familiar with it?
Sure. So Family Search is run by the Church of Latter-day Saints, and it is a completely free website. They have worked really hard to index as many records as possible. What I happen to love about Family Search, like I said, it's free. All you have to do is sign up, right, with a username and a password. They don't send you a whole bunch of stuff or anything like that, but you can search the records they've indexed, but you can also go into their catalog. And if you go into their catalog, and search for instance, Boone County, Missouri, you can get into and see the land records. Now, they're not indexed. You have to actually, it's like sitting and searching the microfilm. You can just do it from your own home. Family Search also has a family tree component. You know, they also, you can add photos, you can do all kinds of, it's like a free version of Ancestry is really, to me, what Family Search is. It's like, there's no paywall, completely free. And a lot of those county records, especially the county records back east, I don't find that Family Search has as many county records for the Western United States. But yeah, if you haven't used Family Search as a genealogist, that's definitely a site you want to explore.
And maybe you can cover a one world tree versus a private tree on ancestry.com for the newbies.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so one world tree on Family Search is everybody contributing to a family tree, whereas on Ancestry, it's everybody putting in their individual trees. They're not connected. And some family trees on Ancestry are private, and you can't see it all unless you request permission from the individual who put the tree on. But again, with Family Search, it's one tree. We're all just building, and you can, you know, sometimes an individual can be in there twice. You can merge individuals. Yeah, I mean, it is exactly what it sounds like. It's one big tree that they're building.
So I'd like to give a shout out to the Historical Society and the State Archives. I made a trip 15 years ago, and so I think the Historical Society must have been in an older building at that time.
Yeah,
but in your newspaper collection, I was able to find a pre-Civil War newspaper for New Madrid and find the ad for a fourth great uncle who was a dentist in New Madrid at the time. And so there's a little ad with the choppers, you know, the false teeth symbol on it. It was quite fun to do. And I also found lots of stuff at the archives. So definitely recommend an in-person visit.
Oh yeah, and like if you were here 15 years ago, then you were in the basement of Ellis. And
yes,
we have a much nicer facility now, big research room, much nicer with a parking lot. That was probably one of the most important things that came out of our new building was, right, being on a university campus is no fun when it comes to parking. Now we have free parking out behind our building, and it's so much nicer.
I'll have to come back.
Yes.
Well, Amy, that kind of brings me to one of the questions I wrote down. If somebody is going to make an actual visit to your facility, besides making an appointment in advance, you know, if they're going to be there in person, what do they need to bring with them?
Okay, so again, with us being a preservation library, you can bring what you want. It's just we're going to make you put them in our lockers because we don't allow bags, coats, purses, anything like that in our research centers. You can bring in a laptop, you can bring in your notebooks. We ask that you only use pencils. You can bring in a camera, a phone, all of that stuff is fine. Really what we don't like is anything that's in a zippered container or zippered, bag, purse, whatever. We just don't like that.
Yeah, that's understandable. That's kind of standard, actually. That's why I asked this question to a lot of our guest speakers, because we do get some people in the class who actually do get the advantage of traveling to the facilities and actually doing the research in person. Now, you mentioned Civil War records, of course, is something of big interest to the class. You mentioned that you have the Confederate collection. Are those digitized or are they just indexed?
Well, the index cards, there is no, I shouldn't call them index cards. They're cards to who was at the Confederate home. Those are digitized. But whether they're indexed, you can find them by doing, like, the names are indexed in our digital collection. Does that make sense? If you search for a name, it'll bring up that image of the card.
I see. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Now, of course, one of the things we stress in this class is citing our sources. Do any of your databases, or not databases, but when you access, like, let's say a card, how do you cite that card?
Okay, sure. So we always ask that, obviously, you cite it to the State Historical Society of Missouri. At this point, because there's 6 of us, we're going to ask if you try to actually cite it to which specific SHS. So, you know, if, for instance, if you have a collection that's, and this is not as easy to ascertain when you're dealing with the digital collections, but the most important part is this, is that it says State Historical Society of Missouri, and then you give the collection number. Our collections are, they're determined by location. So for instance, the Columbia collections all start with C, but St. Louis all start with S. And our photograph collections all start with P. But on the digital, on our digital website, the metadata includes the collection name and its number. That's the important information. I'm glad you said this, because yesterday I spent some time with another coworker. We had a question from a patron who asked us about a photograph of Mark Twain and his daughters, and indicated that somebody had cited the SHS on a Pinterest. On this, you know, this image was on Pinterest apparently. And the problem is that we can't find the image in our collection because we have nothing to work from to tell us where possibly it came from our collection. And it turns out we happen to find the image in a Mark Twain book, and it's not the SHS. It's possible somebody took a scan or, you know, copied the image from a Mark Twain book, but the image itself was marked Mark Twain Monument in Connecticut. And so we directed the patron to the image there. So it helps us if we actually know what collection we're looking in. At a minimum, it needs to say the State Historical Society of Missouri, but really it needs to also include the collection, the call number, where it came from.
Do you have anything on the webpage to show a sample of each facility's how to cite, like a template type thing?
Yeah, and in fact, a lot of the inventories now actually include the citation, how you are supposed to cite it.
Great. And now,
yes,
for the benefit of the newcomers today, do you mind just going over just very briefly the importance of citing?
Oh, well, I mean, so since I do genealogy and I'm also a librarian, I can see both sides of, you know, it's like I spend my day sometimes when I'm answering emails trying to figure out where an image came from. And that can be time consuming for us, especially where somebody sends me an image and it's just Mark Twain and 2 of his daughters. It's like, there's a lot of Mark Twain photographs. And then also, I always, when I do genealogy talks that are just general genealogy talks, I always like to say that when you're doing your citing, you should think of it as the yellow brick road, because you need to be able to follow that yellow brick road exactly back to where you got the information. You need to think of it as, yes, in your mind, you know where it's from and, you know, you found it. That's great. But make sure that however you cite it, that it is enough information that a complete stranger can also follow that yellow brick road right back to the citation, right back to the source of your citation.
I like that analogy.
I'm a Kansas kid.
Okay, Georgia in the chat box has asked, Amy, is there info on Union, Missouri Civil War soldiers in your collection? Oh,
okay. That we do have the indexes that from the National Archives. So I actually have a Missouri ancestor who served both in a Missouri regiment that Missouri regiment was transferred into federal service. So his federal records are at the National Archives. His Missouri regiment, that information comes from the Missouri State Archives in Jefferson City. So we only have the National Archives records, the indexes here at our facility. Those you can find on Fold 3. Anything else that we have a lot of Civil War diaries in our manuscript collections. And, you know, our manuscript collections can range from a 2-page document to really big collections. And you'd be surprised, you know, if you do a search for a name, it's possible, you know, that maybe they appeared in a diary or something, or they had a diary or something like that. So really, when it comes, we don't really have union records other than the National Archives indexes.
Now, I know sometimes, when I go on Archive Grid, and I have found some of my ancestors' diaries and such in other states other than where they lived. In your archives, do you have only Missouri, or do you have items from other states as well?
No, we have items from other states as well, because what happens is, right, somebody's descendants moved to the state, and that's how it ended up in our facility. Especially, we focus a lot more on Missouri related sources now. When we originally, they tended to collect everything just to build the collection out. Now we have the luxury of trying to focus really just on Missouri, and if possible, offer to other historical society, be like, get in contact with them and say, this donor has this. It really does fit more in your state than it does our state.
Now, you mentioned in your manuscript collection that you have a lot of groups that have donated collections. What about different groups that it would be interest to people who do genealogy, like DAR or SAR or Mayflower or the Masons, the Odd Fellows, the Pythians, and so on?
Right. So we have a lot of the lineage societies, but yeah. I was trying to think. Colonial Dames is one that we've collected for Missouri. We actually have the DAR library in our facility for the state of Missouri. It's here in our research center. It's just, it's their books. In one of our manuscript collections is actually the UDC records, the United Daughters of the Confederacy. That's one of our big collections that we see the most use out of. And it was the daughters, these descendants filling out information on their fathers, grandfathers. And so that collection is part of our manuscript collection.
Very helpful. Okay, well, class, do you have any other questions for Amy? Go ahead and unmute your microphone and ask. Okay. All right. Well, it sounds like, Amy, you've answered all the questions, and we really appreciate your time, and want to thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. And also thank you for allowing us to record. It's greatly appreciated. It'll take several weeks for our marketing department to get it up on our webpage, on our YouTube channel. But once they do, I'll be happy to send you the link if you'd like to share it with your coworkers or whatever.
Okay, sure. That'd be great.
Okay. And then in the meantime, before I say goodbye to you, I want to remind everyone that the class will continue on for at least another hour or two. Very frequently, we go on for 3 or 4 hours after class. We just keep on going until everyone just wants to say goodbye. But I invite everyone who is logged in right now to stay with us for the second half of class. And if you're new today to the class for the first time, the second half of class, we work on trees together, or sometimes we just discuss genealogy topics. But if you are new to the class, I encourage you to stay for the second half, because we are kind of like a family now. We've been doing this class for like 5 years, and we've gotten to know each other pretty well over those 5 years. And I think you'll enjoy yourself if you stay for that second half of class. However, if you don't want to stay for the second half of class, all you have to do is click on the red end button, and that'll take you out of today's session. And we hope to see you any Friday that you can log on, and we appreciate you coming today. And with that, I will say, one other thing, one more reminder. Please download the chat box before you log out, because if you log out and then log back in, you will not have access to that chat box. So once again, download the chat box. All you got to do is click on those 3 little dots at the bottom of the screen on the chat box screen, and that'll download it to your computer. Or if you don't know how to do that, you can just highlight the entire chat box, copy and paste it into an email to yourself, whatever is most convenient. So with that, Amy, I will say thank you very, very much, and we definitely appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you for having me.
Thank you. Bye-bye.